Welcome to the First Cut podcast, live on the CBS Sports Network. I'm Rick Gehman. That right there is Patrick McDonald, and we are giving you all the updates on this week's Genesis Scottish Open. Patrick, good to see you. How are you enjoying your first few days of your Scottish swing?
It's going pretty well, assimilating myself nicely to the time change, getting up early, a little cup of coffee, a little another cup of coffee. Caffeine intake's obviously high, but I like how we get the afternoons off, right, Rick? It's quite nice. A little Friday afternoon to hit the town, do whatever you want to do.
I went to brunch after yesterday's opening round. That never happened. So yes, very much coffee golf. But I was promised Scottish weather, and it feels more like Southern California because this golf course has played under par each of the first 2 days by about a stroke. There's been very little wind. There's been very little carnage. These players are taking the Renaissance Club apart.
Yeah, I'm disappointed, honestly. I don't know what Mother Nature's doing right now. I don't know if she had a long week last week around the world or what's going on, but she has failed to show up so far through two rounds. And it's like, hello, we need a little something out of you because we have these guys, they're taking off their pullovers, they're taking off their jackets, they're not even packing umbrellas in their golf bags, Rick. And you see it there with the scores. I think Jeremy St. Louis told me on HQ that there were 20 guys who shot 66 or better yesterday, and there was only five who did that in the first round in 2023. So it's weird to say that it feels like dome golf when you're on the coast of Scotland, but through two rounds, it kind of feels like that.
Well, what I'm hoping for is that Mother Nature is gearing up for next week. Give us the benign conditions this week at the Renaissance Club, but when we get to Royal Troon, I want carnage, I want wind, I want rain, I want all of the above. Dome golf is very good for one Ludvig Aberg, who is your leader as we wrap up the second round here of the Genesis Scottish Open. And it's a pair of 64s. Ludvig AI looked very much like a robot again today as he went out in 31. Patrick, he birdied 3 and 5, which were on his second nine to close out a 33 coming in. And this is another impressive round from a guy who is making a statement as a professional.
Do we pronounce it technically Ludwig OI, given the little circle above the A in his name? I'm not too sure. Whatever you want to call him, right? IBM Ludwig, the supercomputer, the machine, a little nod to Albert Pujols. The tangibles are obviously awesome. Top five in this field, strokes gained off the tee. He's hit 31 out of 36 greens in regulation. But Rick, there's one point in his round that I wanted to point out. He's on the par five third, the easiest hole on the golf course. Like Ludwig does, he splits the middle of the fairway. But he gets a little bit of a bad break where his ball settles on a downslope right before it turns up into an upslope. So he can't get his three wood to cover it, right? Hits the top of the hill, bounces into pretty much a cross bunker 45, 50 yards away from the green. And instead of pouting, you think about Jordan Spieth, so to speak, during the John Deere Classic. He's 8 under through 12 holes, pulls a wedge shot, and like he's muttering to himself over his third shot. He's still talking about his second shot. Over his fourth shot, he's still talking about his second shot. It just festers in Jordan Spieth's brain, and that's one end of the spectrum. And on the other, you have guys like Scotty Scheffler and Ludwig, who looks at Skovron. It's not the first instance, and he just laughs. He's like, "Wow, that was pretty crazy, right?" Gets up to the bunker shot, which was no easy bunker shot, splashes it to 5 feet, rolls in the birdie putt, and just keeps on going. And so the tangibles, the roboticness of him all, it's obviously very impressive. But week after week, I just continue to be more impressed by those intangibles and being able to brush off any bad break.
It's incredible. And we obviously follow this very closely on a weekly and monthly basis. But remember, he just turned professional just over a year ago, and he's already got the PGA Tour win, the DP World Tour win, the Ryder Cup team victory. Now he is heading into this is going to be his fourth major championship next week. And if he plays like he did in the opening two rounds here this week over the weekend, he might have a win leading into that fourth major championship.
Yeah, can't win the big one, right, Rick? That's kind of been the knock on him so far through three major championships. Was in contention with Scotty Scheffler at the Masters. He was leading halfway through the U.S. Open, right? Before that triple bogey on 13 on Saturday. So I'm really expecting him to put that experience from Pinehurst #2, those lessons learned, into practice this weekend and have a really good weekend heading into the Open.
From the fourth ranked player in the world to the 166th ranked player in the world. That is Antoine Rosner, who is one shot off the pace, the closest chaser to Ludvig Aberg. And it's not only this week after a clean 6 under 64 today. He's in the mix at the Scottish Open. But Patrick, he is presenting himself a chance to even get in to next week's Open Championship. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the top three in this event who are not otherwise qualified will punch their ticket to Royal Troon next week. Rosner right now would be getting one of those spots.
And he's been playing some pretty good golf on the DP World Tour. Uh, Honestly, since the Italian Open there at the end of June, he finished inside the top five, had a nice start in China as well, that shortened 54-hole event. And he's been great. His iron play has been awesome so far through two rounds. I'm looking at his stats right now. He actually ranks 134th in terms of driving accuracy. So if you want to poke a hole in where Rosner might fall short this weekend, he's only hit 11 fairways so far through two rounds. And we see it when you get into the high stuff, you're really at the mercy of the golfing gods. Some are very thin lies. You can get the club on the back of the golf ball. Others, you're pretty much chipping out sideways, just trying to advance it 70, 80 yards back into the fairway. So a lot of pressure to play himself into the Open, a lot of pressure playing alongside presumably someone like Ludvig Aberg, who's going to pepper fairways, pepper greens, and just continually put the ball in your court. So it's been a great first two rounds. Rosner's a guy who he has hovered around that top 50 in the world mark. I remember him playing one of those last WGC match play events. I think he beat Bryson DeChambeau.
Bryson. Yep, that's
Yeah,
the one highlight that everybody remembers from Antoine Rosner.
I think that was also the year that people were betting Richard Bland to beat Bryson as well. So quite the international group Bryson had to go through, which I don't think he did looking back on it. But yeah, if that's Rosner's career highlight, obviously punching his ticket to the Open Championship would be huge. But he's got to figure out the driver and keep the ball in play a bit more, I would say.
Yeah, I'm not ready to put money down, but I don't think Bryson got out of that group. I think Rosner got out of that group. He's not alone. The international flair continues. A fellow resident of the DP World Tour, Matteo Manassero, the Italian who has really resparked his career here in 2024, went out and shot a 7 under 63. That was the round of the day until very, very late in this second round. And Matteo's already punched his ticket to next week. So this is kind of all gravy, an opportunity to really change the course of your career over the next 9 days, Patrick.
Yeah, and he has been awesome, especially today. He gained over 5 strokes on approach, nearly 8 strokes on the field, tee to green. Rick, he lost 2-ish strokes on the greens and still shot 7 under 63. That's how well he hit it. And the iron play really took a turn after the U.S. Open, I would say. He qualified for that, and then he came back top 10 at the KLM Open, top 10 at the Italian Open as well. And this is a guy who a lot of golf fans are probably familiar with. I believe he was the youngest player ever to win the BMW PGA Championship, the flagship event there on the DP World Tour. He's only, what is it, 31 years old, but it seems like he's been on our televisions for about 2 decades now. And he got back into the winner's circle in March with a victory there at the Johnson Workwear Open. Weird sponsors there on the European circuit. But the rise for Matteo has been gradual. Winner on the Challenge Tour last year as well. So tee to green, iron play has been awesome so far. And the trend leading up to this event has been awesome as well. And it's just cool to see a guy who was labeled as the next big thing, a phenom, get back into the mix and get back on a stage like this.
That win at the BMW PGA Championship was in 2013, so 11 years ago. He's 31. You do the math. He won that when he was 20 years old. We are going to continue diving into this leaderboard, looking ahead to the rest of the Genesis Scottish Open. We're going to continue with some more big names after a quick word from our partners. And we're back on the First Cut Podcast live on CBS Sports Network. Patrick, let's talk about more guys at the top of the board here. And these might be some more familiar names if you follow the PGA Tour on a regular basis. Sungjae Im followed up his 63 from yesterday with a 63 this morning. Just one blemish on the card. Right after the turn, he bogeyed number one as he started on the second nine on the golf course. But Sungjae's season has really started to turn around. 4 top 12 finishes in his last 5 starts after a slow start to the calendar year. Are we getting a little Sungjae momentum heading towards our final major and a potential playoff run?
That is a very good question you have posed. He kind of got the holes you were supposed to, right? Rattling off, I think, a handful of birdies on those par fives. That middle stretch of the front nine is kind of the easiest part of the golf course. And so he probably could have gotten a few more out of his round. But right there, only 2 back heading into the weekend. Like you said, it's been a strange year for Sungjae Im, and I've been a little critical of him. I will not be afraid to admit that, right? His non-major starts have been awesome since the turn of the spring. A handful of top 12s, like you said, was just a couple strokes outside that playoff between Tom Kim and Scotty Scheffler at the Travelers Championship. But then you look at his majors and it's like, okay, miscut, miscut, miscut. What kind of Sungjae are we going to get next week? What kind of Sungjae are we going to get this weekend, Rick? This is a guy who hasn't won on the PGA Tour since the fall of 2021. We all talk about him being this young superstar player. He has a sneaky, great personality as well. The players really like him too. And I want him to take down a big time tournament because his talent is good enough to do that, right? So this is obviously a great start. This would be the biggest win of his career. And I think it's really helpful that we are kind of playing dome golf this weekend. And I know he's won that difficult one at the Honda Classic, but he also won in your neck of the woods at TPC Summerlin, which can, I think, only be defined as dome golf.
Yeah, and he won it at about 25 under par or something pretty outrageous, which we're pacing towards right now in Scotland, which is a little bit unbelievable. So that's 2 shots back for Sungjae Im after opening up with 63 and 67. More good news out of Collin Morikawa. Talk about a guy who has turned his year around. He's been splendid since the Masters. Shot a 65 yesterday, a 66 today, and it was an immediate need to get on track, Patrick, because he started on number 10 and he made bogey on the par 5 10th right out of the gate, a hole that you're hoping to take advantage of. He was able to get that back and 2 more before he made the turn. So it was nice to see. He hit a little bit of turbulence, was able to right the ship, and now he's positioning himself again for another contention run.
Yeah, and you look at this scorecard, he made bogeys on 2 of the 3 easiest holes on the golf course. The par 4 fifth there is that drivable one. Got a little unlucky where his third was just short of the bunker, had to flip the club over, chip it left-handed. Actually did, I mean, honestly, better than I would do from that position. And I am left-handed. Hit it to about 7 feet and just unfortunately missed that par putt and then the opening bogey as well. But that front side, the back nine there, he only hit 2 fairways, and he talked about this a little bit after his round where he was really happy how much he got out of his round without the driver really cooperating. And when you think about Collin Morikawa, at least this year, probably throughout the entirety of his career, he's one of the most accurate drivers in the entire planet. So if that club wasn't cooperating, he made bogey on 2 of the easiest holes. Everything else looks super good still. You would think, okay, he's going to get the driver back in a good spot tomorrow. He won't make those same mistakes. And I know you would love this. I think he's going to give it a really good charge over the weekend. Because like you said at the beginning of the week, the trend, Rick, the trend was awesome leading into this week.
Oh, I would love it if he won this. That would help my wallet. It would help my heart. It would help a lot of things. But how about this? Let's quickly we're gonna spend plenty of time on next week, but I want to highlight what Collin has done in major championships this year. T3 at the Masters, T4 at the PGA Championship, T14 at the US Open. I mean, it's not just the PGA Tour events. The major championships are finding him on the first page of the leaderboard as well.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this after the Masters because he came in pretty under the radar. I think he drifted to like 50 to 1 at some places before Augusta, which is just wild to think for Collin Morikawa, who doesn't even have 20 major championship appearances, and the results he's been able to put together. But Rick, some guys just know how to play major championship golf, and Morikawa has proven with or without his form that he is capable at major championships. Even look back at Brookline, the leader at the halfway point, where he was hitting a draw for the first time in his life. He was like, I don't know how to play a draw. And there he was leading at the halfway point. So you figure he's in form. He has that major pedigree, and he's obviously won an Open before.
Yeah, he's sick and trending towards a big one or two very, very soon. Unfortunately, the wrong direction for Justin Thomas, who was our first round leader, our overnight leader, and it did not go well. Early this morning, things started to get off the rails. He bogeyed his third hole today, which was number 12. He bogeyed 15, which was his sixth hole of the day, and it didn't get much better after that for JT Patrick. He ended his round late by making a double on number 8, his 17th hole of the day. This is a 10-shot difference, a 72 compared to what he shot yesterday, a 62. He has fallen 20 plus spots on the leaderboard, and the inconsistencies of Justin Thomas continue.
They do, and that double on 8 was the result of a wayward drive, lost his golf ball, and he actually made a real nice, I want to say like 10-footer on 9 to shoot 72, only 2 over. And so, I was talking about this earlier where Justin Thomas's good is still very, very good, as we saw on Thursday, right? His ceiling is still as high as some of the best players in the world. But over these past 2.5 years, really ever since that win at the PGA Championship, Rick, his lows are just way too low. They're obviously low-lighted by those major championship performances, the rounds over 80 at the US Open last year, at last year's Open as well. And this is a similar case. It's obviously not as dramatic, but you shoot 2 over on a golf course that really has no defenses. It played 1 under par today, similar to the first round, and you lose 3 strokes on the field. And I just look at the elite players in this game, like a Rory McIlroy, a Scotty Scheffler, a Xander Schauffele, and with their C-B game, what would they shoot today? Well, Xander had his C game yesterday, you could say, and he came around field average, shot 1 under, kept himself in the mix, shot a good round today, and is going to have a chance heading into the weekend. And with Justin, I think these lows, he's got to start raising his floor a bit more to start becoming the player that he once was.
Yeah, it feels like when things start going south with him, Patrick, it's difficult for him to stop the bleeding and get it in under par or near par. We'll talk about Victor Hovland, but he started off miserably today. He was still able to shoot around under par. There's guys that do this all the time. Rory McIlroy does. We talk about Collin Morikawa, but it just feels like Justin is a highly momentum-based player. When it's good, it's really, really good. And when it's bad, he's going to head in that direction and shoot an 80.
Yeah, it felt like all the putts that lipped in yesterday lipped out, and you kind of saw him like grinding over every single putt from there on out. And like you said, once it start rolling downhill, the ball's already gone.
Yeah, it's tough for him to overcome. Now, here's another guy with a huge ceiling, a pretty low floor, though he has tightened it up a little bit. He goes out, and I'm talking of Sahith Theegala, obviously. Here, 66, 65, and he absolutely ended in a flurry here, Patrick. So he doubled 18, his 9th hole of the day, and then he plays his second 9 in 30, thanks to 5 birdies, no bogeys on the card. That's the turnaround you want, right? That's the ability to bounce back, go get it back, and then some.
That is the bounce back, yes. And he took advantage of that stretch there on the front 9, 1 through 6, I would say. He didn't even get the drivable par 4 there, rattling off 3 birdies during that stretch. And Saw his statistical profile this year. He's improved everywhere from tee to green, right? Career best off the tee. Approach numbers are trending in the right direction. Around the green, still pretty solid. But what's been weird is the putter hasn't really come to life in recent weeks. It's been a little poor. Really, ever since he got himself in the mix at the PGA Championship. I believe he was in the penultimate group there on Sunday, and he made a ton of putts today. Made a nice long one on 7 and another nice long one on 9 to come in that 30, that 5 under 30. So we talk about Sahith sort of in the same manner as we talk about Jordan Spieth, right? He might be the non-alcoholic version of Spieth, the diet version of Spieth, whatever you want to say. And obviously Jordan Spieth has had an awesome track record on links golf outside of the past 2 Scottish Opens where he's missed the cut. And so you would think the creativity, the wildness, the flair, all that Spieth has could translate to Sahith, and he could be a links golf legend, as Greg DuCharme would say, here for the rest of his career.
He's definitely fun, and it would be fun to see him become a links golf legend. That's just the morning wave, Patrick. We haven't even talked about the afternoon wave. Rory McIlroy, Victor Hovland, Tommy Fleetwood, and so many more. We're going to continue this conversation after a quick break. Welcome back to the First Cut Podcast live on CBS Sports Network. And we turn our attention, Patrick, to the afternoon wave of the Genesis Scottish Open, though it was still very much morning for most everybody here in the States. Rory McIlroy, our defending champion, shot a 65 yesterday, followed it up with a 66 here today. He gave us the warm and fuzzies early. 3 birdies in his first 5. He ends up turning in 32. And Patrick, as it always feels like with Rory McIlroy, this could have been 3 shots better.
Yeah, it definitely could have been, but those first 10 holes, that's really how you want to play the Renaissance Club. That is the ideal start. The first hole is a gentle handshake. You get the easiest hole on the golf course, the par 5 third. That's playing about, honestly, almost a stroke under par. And then you get the drive ball 5th. Rick, the drive into number 5. I'm not a huge rollback guy, but I don't know if humans should be allowed to do that. That's a conversation for a different day, obviously. But to hit that pin high, get it up on the correct level was, I mean, downright filthy. And then he grabs a birdie there, makes a nice 12-footer on number 10 to get to 4 under on the day through his first 10 holes. And unfortunately, he had one real bad swing, full swing of the golf club. It came on 11, flared it right, hit a tree, maybe got a little bit unlucky. Ball settled near the base of the tree, had to take it unplayable, and honestly did very, very well to get out of there with only dropping 1 shot. Hit a really nifty little bunker shot, utilizing the slope from left and behind the pin to bring it into about 2 feet there, and then adds a birdie there later. And like you said, it could have been better. You take the unplayable out of there. You take the short missed, what was it, maybe 3 feet, 3.5 feet there on the 16th.
16th, it was 3 feet 9 inches. Yep.
Yeah, 3 feet 9 inches. That is unfortunately a distance Rory has become a little too familiar with in recent tournaments. I think that is the exact distance, believe it or not. But it was a super professional round from him, and he's given himself a chance again to win the week before the Open. Rick, I was looking into his starts the week leading into a major championship since 2019. He has played in 7 of them before this week. This is number 8. He has won 4 of them. That includes the Wells Fargo this year. That includes the Scottish Open last year. He actually won in his last start before Kiowa as well. So he's a perfect 3 for 3 returning to sites of his majors. He is the king of the hype train, leading into major championships. And it seems like he's at it again.
I mean, he's 40 major championships into this drought. And I think that before every one of them, I've said, yeah, this is the one, right? This is the one Rory gets because of that. Patrick, right? He's one of the best players in the world. And these guys work so hard to peak 4 times a year. He seems to do it. Sometimes it's a week early, but he is just so focused, so good, but it hasn't translated to major championship success by only his own standards, which is wins. His top tens and all that stuff have been great, but it has not translated into major championship wins since 2014.
Would a win on Sunday change your perception, your energy levels, your hype about Rory McIlroy heading into Royal Trim?
No, I'm already at it like 100 out of 10. So there's nothing, there's nowhere else to go. I mean, he's been the second best player in the world this year. I'm gonna be excited for his chances next week, no matter what. But it would definitely add a new level to the Scotty Scheffler conversation, who we don't have this week.
Yeah, it definitely would. And I will say, I think this golf course is just a great fit for him in general because you're just wailing driver, it seems, on every single hole. And I think one thing that was lost in the US Open was how well Rory McIlroy drove the ball at Pinehurst #2. I mean, he was altering his trajectories throughout the entire week. I think he gained about 8 strokes off the tee, which is bonkers, absolutely
Nuts.
bonkers. And so it seems like he's continued that driving pace outside that 1 on 11. And on a golf course where you consistently hit that club, that obviously leads into Rory McIlroy's hands.
Yeah, he's sick. He is currently in at 9 under par. He is 3 shots off the lead going into the weekend. Now, there are not one, Patrick, but two different Hojgaards in this field. They are both inside the top 15. They are brothers and they are twins. Let's focus on Rasmus. He's the one that we don't necessarily see as much on the PGA Tour because he's currently residing on the DP World Tour. Well, he's got the upper hand on Bro, at least so far. A 63 today that was blemish free, out in 30. Don't forget about Rasmus, Patrick. He is just as good as Nikolai, despite them not playing on the same tour currently.
Yeah, I mean, really easily could have been on the PGA Tour. You remember at the DP World Tour Championship, Matthew Ovon birdies his last 4 holes there to grab the last spot for the last PGA Tour card, where the top 10 DP World Tour finishers would get a card to the PGA Tour. And then obviously Pavon, not to make it all about him, beats Nikolai there at Torrey Pines. So the Frenchman, he has no love lost between the Danish twins. And Rasmus today obviously put together a great result, put together around that he's more than capable of, and it really stemmed from the putter. Right, it seemed like he made just about everything on the greens, ranked second on the day in terms of strokes gained putting. And I think the iron play is probably going to need to improve over the weekend. But if you look at his stats, his tournaments, his finishes leading up to this week, the iron play was in a really good spot. So maybe he could grab this win, grab a PGA Tour card for the next couple seasons, and join his brother stateside.
The month of, spring of, summer of Aaron Rai continues. He goes out and shoots a 65. That's 5 under to move him to 7 under for the tournament. That's 5 off the pace. He's now inside the top 20, Patrick. And you mentioned it to me. He is not in the field next week at the Open Championship. So he has a lot to play for. He's currently just outside that extra spots and invites that are going to be given out this week.
Yeah, it's been an awesome month, like you said, for Aaron Rife, playing in the final groups in the final round there in Detroit and there in Silvis, Illinois as well for the John Deere Classic. Unfortunately, not getting it done in either case. And I think you got to wonder if you're Aaron Rai, where it went wrong, so to speak. So far through 2 rounds, the putter has been awesome. And Greg laid out for us on the first cut about the switch to a new putting coach, really leaning into a new green reading technique. I'm not sure if it's aim point or not. I hope it's not, for the sake of Aaron Rai and the rest of the fans out there. I'd really appreciate it if it was not aim point. And it's probably a case of, hey, like, his ball striking is usually so good. He's one of the most accurate drivers in the world, and his iron play is awesome. Maybe if that comes around over the weekend and the putter stays where it is, you would think Aaron Rai contends. But for one reason or another, it just hasn't worked at these last 2 tournaments. And those last 2 tournaments, Rick, they didn't have a Rory McIlroy. They didn't have a Collin Morikawa or Ludvig Aberg. So I think it's a tall mountain to climb for Rye. I hope he gets into the Open because he more than deserves it, in my opinion. But I'm not sure if he's going to get into the winner's circle, so to speak.
He doesn't have to, but he's got to improve to punch his ticket to the Open Championship. Quick hat tip to Alejandro Del Rey, who shot the round of the day. That's a 62 with a bogey on the card, but we've got more big boppers. Viktor Hovland, Tommy Fleetwood, Xander Schauffele, and much more still to come after a quick break. Welcome back to the First Cut Podcast live on CBS Sports Network. And Patrick, we've got so many big names in the Genesis Scottish Open. We must roll on. We must do it. And one of the most interesting players and one of the most interesting rounds of the day came from Viktor Hovland. Let's start with the round. An incredibly ugly start. He makes bogey on one. He doubles two, and he's 3 over immediately out of the gate. Now, Victor's going to give you the full grind, and that's exactly what we got here today. He made the turn in 1 over before firing a 33 coming in to salvage this day and get it in under par. But at 4 under for the tournament and just inside the top 50, making the cut and playing the weekend is going to likely be the big accomplishment this week. Viktor is not going to be part of the winning storyline.
Yeah, it looks that way, Rick. I still have a little hope, though. I don't know why. Maybe usually that comes from you when we're talking about Viktor Hovland, but just a really bad front nine with the driver. He only hit one fairway on that side. Did actually pretty well to shoot 1 over, but missed the fairway on one. Kind of heavy-handed. His putt from the semi-rough, I want to say, through the green. Ended up kind of 3-putting, but only counting as 2. And then he did actually 3-putt the next hole after being in the greenside bunker for his double bogey. So the driver looked a lot better there on the back 9. He started making a bunch of putts, couple 40-foot birdie putts to kind of get himself in the mix, right? It figured, okay, this guy could get himself maybe to 6 under. He'll have a chance heading into the weekend. But then he doesn't take advantage of the par 5 16th from the middle of the fairway, is unable to get up and down from short and right of that, misses about an 11-footer there. And then he misses that 2-footer on 17, I want to say, to really put the nail in his coffin for his tournament chances. So bit of a disappointing round, I would say. He looked pretty good on Thursday, shooting 3 under. I honestly expected something like a 66, 67 out of him again today, but unfortunately only 1 under out of him and probably out of it.
That missed putt was not 2 feet, Patrick. It was 2 feet 2 inches. So just a little bit of credit there. Yeah. But in all seriousness, I mean, how are you grading Viktor Hovland's season? You know, he entered this week 50th in the FedEx Cup standings. If it ended right now, he would remain 50th in the FedEx Cup standings. He has not contended at all. I guess maybe he contended at the PGA Championship. I guess was the closest. He ended up finishing 3rd there. But I mean, how are you assessing this season from our reigning FedEx Cup champion?
I think you'd have to put it in the C- range, I would say, because the PGA Championship obviously does a lot to help the perception of his season, right? It's, oh, this guy contended on the back 9 at a major championship. He had a putt to potentially force a playoff with Xander Schauffele to match Bryson DeChambeau on the 18th hole. Ended up 3-putting, but that was, beside the fact. And he finishes in 3rd place in a major championship. Oh my God, Viktor Hovland is back. We're ready to roll. And then he misses the cut at the US Open, the short game. I know even with switching back to Coach Joe Mayo, is still in a really bad spot. He ranks last on the PGA Tour in terms of strokes gained around the green. And so I think given who he is, given a FedEx Cup win, I mean, the case could easily be made 10 months ago, 11 months ago, Viktor Hovland was the best player in the world. The BMW Championship, the Tour Championship, and what he did at the Ryder Cup. And to go from there to where he currently is, it's a pretty drastic drop, but I don't think he's really too far off.
Speaking of that PGA Championship and the eventual winner, it was Xander Schauffele who flew up the leaderboards today, up 70 spots. 70. There was a chance and the likelihood, Patrick, that when he made the turn, he was outside the cut line. This was going to be a short week for Xander after playing his first 7 holes at even par, but he gets it going on the second 9, birdies on 10, 11, 14, and 16 to post a 5 under 65, move him to 6 under for the tournament, get him inside the top 25, and all is right in the world.
It is, and we mentioned Justin Thomas being at 6 under, and talk about how different these two players must be feeling being at that number. Xander hit every green after he missed his only green of the day on number 2. The iron play looked a lot better today. The driver looked much better there on the back 9 as well, and that's honestly been kind of hairy ever since that PGA Championship win. So this is a guy who he kept himself in the tournament on Thursday with that round of 1 under, and it seems like he's been doing that a lot lately. It kind of reminded me of the US Open where he went into the weekend and you're like, what? Xander Schauffele's under par? There's no way. He's hit like 1 fairway, I think. And just his ability to score, I think, has become more and more impressive to me ever since that PGA Championship victory. Because it seemed like ever since then, something's been off, right? The iron play's off at Memorial. The driver's off at the US Open. The short game doesn't really cooperate for him there at the Travelers Championship, even though he was in with a chance to win. So it's just another notch on the belt for him. And he makes that cut, gets to 51, one step closer to Tiger Woods's 142. Although I think that record, if we want to talk about asterisks, shout out to Taylor Gooch. When we look back on it, you got to give an asterisk to this cut streak, given I don't know how no cut tournaments count for a cut streak, Rick. That makes 0 sense at all.
It's a sham, Patrick. That's what it is. Yeah, you were one step ahead of me. This moves it to 51, but even in events with no cuts, which this is an event with a cut, this one counts, but even in no cut events, that somehow ticks up. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but that is the world that we live in. I want to quickly hit Tommy Fleetwood here because I think he deserves it. After an opening 65 yesterday, he followed it up with a 1 under 69 today. So the opposite of Xander Schauffele. And this is what, again, I hate to keep bringing this back to Justin Thomas. This is what Justin Thomas didn't do. Didn't really hold it together when things were going sideways. Tommy made 3 bogeys on the front. He made another on the back, but still gets it in under par. This is what the best players in the world do, and Fleetwood has an outside chance of making a run at it this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at that start, you're like, okay, here we go, Tommy. You're going to get yourself in the mix. Nice 15-footer on 1. And then the putter just really betrayed him. Misses a 3-footer there on 2. You're losing 2 strokes to the field when you make bogey there on number 3 as well, but was able to get those birdie holes. He seems to really like the par 3-6. I think he's had tap in back-to-back days, but was able to really ride the ship there and make a nice putt. Found the surface in 2 on 16 to make that last birdie. So if you're Tommy Fleetwood, you got to think, okay, we're into the weekend once again. We're in with an outside chance to win on the PGA Tour once again. And I think this is probably a solid spot for him. We know what he can do at this golf course, in links golf in general. And so if he's thinking to himself, oh, I can shoot 63 like he did last year and position himself a couple back heading into Sunday, could be Tommy time. We've said it for 5, 6, 7, 100 years at this point, but I think it could be Tommy time if he makes the most of his moving day.
It might be Tommy time. 36 down, 36 to go in Scotland. We are going to look at the live betting odds, see what Vegas thinks about how this thing is going to shape up, and then give you our final thoughts about how it all wraps up this weekend. But first, we're going to take a quick break. Welcome back to the First Cut Podcast live on CBS Sports Network. Let's zoom out the halfway point, Patrick, of the Genesis Scottish Open. It is Ludvig Aberg, thanks to a pair of 64s, leading the way into the weekend at 12 under par. And Antoine Rosner, 1 shot back with Sung Jae Im and Matteo Manassero, 2 shots off the pace, and then they start piling up after that. A handful of golfers at 9 under, including Rory McIlroy, Collin Morikawa, and Sahith Theegala. So what does Vegas think about all of this? Well, Ludvig Aberg is the favorite, the shortest odds to win at plus 175. 3 shots back is Rory McIlroy at plus 550. Sungjae Im lurking at 9-1, along with Collin Morikawa, and everybody else, Patrick, everybody else 22-1 or longer. So is there a name or names on that board that you like, or are we going deeper here for the winner of the Scottish Open?
Well, we got to ask ourselves this one simple question, Rick. How far back is too far back? I think the six unders are still in with a chance, and there's some big names there. Obviously, Xander Schauffele leads the way on the odds board at 33. As I alluded to, I still have some faith in Tommy Fleetwood, even though I probably shouldn't at this point. But if we're looking at guys who have a great chance at winning this golf tournament, you gotta like the cut of Collin Morikawa's cloth at this point. 9-1, only a handful back. Didn't get all of it out of his round today. Left numerous strokes out there. Didn't have the driver cooperating, which typically he's good for hitting, I don't know, 11 out of 14 fairways, it seems like. So with the way he came into the week, I hate to kind of steal your thunder, but you gotta love where Collin Morikawa's positioned right now. And with the fact that there's probably no weather rolling in, I think that only plays into the hands of someone like Collin.
Listen, you can steal my thunder. It's all of that sounded very great. Yeah, I agree with you. He had a two-way miss going at times today. That never happens from Collin Morikawa, and he is still just 3 shots back. He's still hanging a double-digit number around 10-1 or so. Wasn't Rory McIlroy basically 5.5-1 before the tournament started? So kind of where we're at right now. After what you've seen through 2 rounds, are you more bullish on Rory now than you were on Wednesday night, or where do you stand?
I'm pretty similar. Nothing that Rory McIlroy does is really going to affect my perception of him unless it's winning a major championship. So when it comes to these Gen Pop events, him getting himself into the mix, him playing well, him hitting his driver well, his iron play looking better, that's like, all right, well, duh. It's Rory McIlroy. It's the best golfer of the last decade in professional golf. So I'm still kind of where I entered the week. I expected him to play well, and he's done that through 2 rounds.
Ludvig getting the nod from Vegas as the favorite, about plus 175, plus 180. This could potentially be win number 3 heading into major championship number 4. I know we've got a lot of hype on Scotty and Rory and everybody else that we have to throw our hype onto, but maybe we should be hyping up Ludvig as a real-time superstar right now.
Yeah, I feel like we've done a pretty good job of that. And not only would it be his 3rd win, it would technically be his 2nd on the PGA Tour and 2nd on the DP World Tour. So it'd be like, what? Does this guy have 4 or 3 wins? I don't really know. So it's a good one to win, is what I'm trying to say. And given his major pedigree, although it is short, it is already very impressive, getting in contention at the Masters, getting in contention at the US Open. And so obviously the form's in great shape. And if there's not a lot of factors or conditions to deal with this weekend, Joe Skovron's going to be able to play Tiger Woods PGA 2008, spin that ball with the joystick, and just tell Ludvig to aim there, hit it there, and probably score a bunch of birdies this weekend.
12 under is the pace for Oberg. If you think the 6 unders are still in play, Justin Thomas notable at 100-1, Xander Schauffele 33-1. Brian Harman likes to play a little bit of links style golf at 150-1. Patrick McDonald, it is a pleasure as always. We are going to continue covering every square inch of this event, and of course, staying on Scottish time for next week. If you like what you've heard, you can find us on a near daily basis on the First Cut podcast. We do our live shows on YouTube. They're available for download on Spotify, on Apple Pods, or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great weekend.